I'm Jen Mall, and welcome to Nurse Connect. I am an RN and a board-certified nurse coach. I believe that connecting with others is essential to living a happy and fulfilled life, and that sharing our stories not only helps us to heal ourselves, but also helps others by inspiring hope and optimism. I am so grateful to share stories of these incredible nurses on their journey, and I encourage you to find a way to share yours too. Thanks for listening in. Hey, everybody, welcome back. I'm Jen Mall with Nurse Connect podcast, and I'm super excited to have Bina Bendale here with me today. Hi. What's exciting about to have Bina on here, she's one of my nurse coach mentors and one of the first people I kind of connected with to draw me into the space and developing my own business and life in general. So I'm super happy to have you on with me finally. So thank you.
It's an honor for me to even watch you grow.
Oh,
That is the biggest honor for me.
Thank you. So I'd love for you to just start. Let's back up a little bit. Tell me a little bit about how you got into nursing and kind of where your path has taken you.
So I always I always knew I wanted to be a nurse, whether it was a doctor or a nurse, like back and forth. I was just like, and I took I even went to like colleges, followed physicians and all of that. I did all of that. And then I think I honestly didn't want to do the schooling. I really think I was like, I gotta do what?
How can I get through this?
Yeah, and I was like, I gotta do what test? And and I did very well on the MCATs. Actually,
Wow.
I passed the MCATs. I did really well on it, and I got accepted into a program that was willing to sponsor, like to basically give me a full scholarship and everything.
Wow.
And I refused it. I turned it down because I was already a nurse at this time.
Oh, okay.
And so they were going to bridge me from being a nurse to a doctor.
Oh, cool.
And I turned it down. And the number one reason is I loved being at bedside. I loved the fact that I knew more than these residents. I knew more than the interns. And I was already at a level with an attending level. So I'm like, if I'm going to make way more money than what they're doing, I might as well just stay where I'm at. But I loved the passion of being able to be that double check for somebody or being that voice for these patients or the family members. Because sometimes they're just like, I'm scared to talk to doctors. And I'm like, why? They just have MD behind their name. You don't call me Nurse Bina walking around, do you? They go, no. I go, okay, then. So it's like, it's just that double standard type of thing of people are like, oh, the doctor's in the room. I didn't want that. So I stayed at bedside. Ended up getting my master's in clinical nurse leadership because I knew leadership is kind of where I wanted to be. And been doing this for now. Oh, well, now I can't say I've been bedside for 18 years because I left. Now a nurse for 20 years. And it's been heartwarming. It's changed a lot. I did paper charting when I first started.
Same.
Yeah, isn't it crazy?
Well, you're talking about all your different colored pens. I'm like, oh, I remember I had my different
You did pens. For charting. I used to have different colored pens. As long as you signed with black, they were okay with it.
Yeah. That's funny.
And that's kind of where I was. And then, what was the next question?
Yeah. So I think we kind of got high level, and we were talking earlier off camera about your experience with COVID. And were you in the ED when COVID first started? Yeah. So maybe we could just share a little bit about your experience. What kind of brought you away from the bedside?
So and if you remember correctly, here in California, when the first ship that arrived that was quarantined, it was me and another nurse we were not chosen, but it was just the round robin label, right? And we were the ones that got the first COVID patients.
Oh, wow.
And it was scary. It was frightening, but people have to understand, I also went through SARS. I've done Ebola.
We had big Ebola.
I even walked into SARS patients. So for me, I was just like, well, I'm used to being deconned. Like I was a decon nurse. I did FEMA. I was certified. I went flying out for places. So I wasn't necessarily scared about it as long as I had the right equipment.
Sure.
So I was used to doing it. So I bunny suit up, put the helmet on, and I was like, all right, ready to go. But then what changed is people's mentality.
Mm,
It turned into this dog eat dog world.
mm,
If I like you, I will help you. If I don't like you, I'm just going to let you suffer.
that's terrible.
And when the masks and supplies got smaller and smaller, and people would give like their last one out to somebody else, I have heard people say, no, 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 don't do that. This is just for me and my friends or me and my circle.
Mm,
And it really shook me to a core, really shook me to a core on that, because some people didn't want to be vaccinated, or some people like they couldn't get, the N95s to seal it.
yeah,
So they weren't able to take COVID patients. And it wasn't because it was a choice. It was because they couldn't safely go into a room.
sure, sure.
And they got scrutinized. They got
Mm,
scrutinized for it. And, I remember some people would cry about it, and it was just like, it was just not a fun environment. Like, you kind of
yeah,
think about when the world's going to end and how people are going to fight over stuff and things. It's like that reality came, but at bedside, when we're supposed to be helping people. So it really did take a toll. And,
yeah,
seeing the death after death after death after death, and then not being able to process that, have someone die right on the door next to you, and then you have to go to the next door and say, hi, I'm Bina.
right.
I'm your nurse today. How can I help you? And you don't even have time to like process that. And then you're going back, doing body bags, or people are, and it was just like, it was so fast. It was more of like,
Hmm.
and the families can't come in. We would have to
Hmm.
FaceTime them. I remember I used to just take my own personal cell phones and FaceTime family members.
Hmm.
Um, it was rough. And then
Yeah.
also, I think for me, the hardest part, knowing Rohan is immunocompromised, it was
Hmm.
that sacrifice of like, okay, now what? What do we do?
Yeah.
Like, I need to serve because that's what we're doing. And it was funny because many nurses got scrutinized for not wanting to show up because they want to
Mm,
protect their family.
sure.
Many nurses got scrutinized for it. They go, well, this is your time to serve. Nurses are heroes. And I was like, nurses been heroes. Like, I don't know what the spotlight is now,
Yeah.
when this is how it's been throughout life. So for that propaganda to really come on now, and then people like, oh, live up to being a nurse. It's like, I've been doing
Mm,
this for 18 years.
yeah.
Like, there's a time and a place where I'm not being selfish, but if I need to step back because of my kids, and I don't want my kids to die or possibly die, or my
Sure.
husband, like, and people were being away from their families for a month at a time, and then they would take a week break, but in that week break they can't go home because they're exposed, or
Oh my
supposedly
goodness.
exposed. So, when me and my husband made the decision that, what, it's all or nothing, like, go to work, come home. We even had a setup station outside my garage, and my neighbors were very nice. Like, they even helped me tent up.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, put a little tent so I can shower, or strip and things or whatever it was, and come in. I would shower and then I'd come home. And it was one of those things where we both said, we're like, you know what? If we all get COVID, we all get COVID. If we don't, we don't. Like, we're just going to have to kind of, but we were very clear that my husband, I felt bad for him. He did not leave the house. Like, he
Oh
was
wow.
very, like, I had to quarantine him with my kids.
Uh-huh.
We had to go to the grocery store. If we had to do, it was only me that left,
Wow.
because I just told him, I'm like, if I were to get positive, or if I were to do something, like, somebody had, like, and if I'm at work and I knew I got fully exposed for, whatever reason,
Yeah,
then it was like, I need somebody home
absolutely.
to
Take care of
manage
your
the
kids.
kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Wow.
I would, like, we would have said, I'd come up to this third floor, open up all the windows, and you know, I mean, we would have done that, or I'd go to the hotel, but even that was expensive. Like, even that was
Yeah.
like, no one wanted to take you.
Yeah.
It was like, you don't win. It was not a win-win situation.
Wow.
So that, it was just hard. It was hard. It was
Yeah.
hard.
So how long did you do that for?
2 years,
Wow.
2 years, a year and a
And
half.
then what was kind of the final driver that when you left the ER?
So, oh man, lack of support. When
From
I
your
started,
employer?
no, from the whole hospital.
Oh my goodness.
So we had, and remember this day, we had 5 ICU patients downstairs. The entire ICU, and we come from a small hospital. Fremont Hospital is like, small.
Hmm.
And ICU rooms were full, and there was one RT on the floor, the entire hospital.
Wow.
And not the RT's fault. I know that a call was out, but because they were like, oh no, due to budget cuts, we're not going to do this.
Oh wow.
This 30-year-old patient who I could not take to CT because she was so and her respirations were so bad that
Hmm.
we cannot leave, we couldn't do anything. Like,
Mm.
we knew she had it, like, we knew she was really sick. She possibly needed ECMO at this time, but we couldn't do anything because we didn't have an airway. Like, we just were like,
Yeah.
well, can't do anything without an airway. Long story short, she lost her airway. We were bagging her for 40 minutes, 5 oxygen tanks, waiting for RT to come down because we had to find a ventilator.
Oh my goodness.
We ended up getting her on high flow. High flow wasn't able to go back. Like, and it was just me and a doctor and
Mm.
a tech. And one of the techs was like, she kept going out to help me get more oxygen tanks because then we started running out of oxygen tanks.
Right.
And then to check on my other patients because I've just been in the room. And I remember they're like, I remember this girl. She told me, please don't let me die. That
Oh
was
my
her last
God.
words to me. And she's like, Bina, please don't let me die. And I was holding her hand, and we kept going. And finally, we got her intubated, all this stuff, and comes in. She ended up passing away later that
Mm.
morning. And instead of the staffs being supportive, comes in that whole week, I was ridiculed.
Oh
I got
no.
questioned about why I didn't do certain things, why I didn't go to CT, why I didn't do an ABG, why I didn't hang the insulin drip. I'm like, because I didn't have an airway. Did you not read my chart? They go, oh, no, we read it. It's very clear. And I said, okay, so what's the problem? I'm already crying
Hmm.
because it really hit me to the core. She was 30 years old.
Yeah.
And, you know, regardless of whatever happened, vaccine or not vaccinated, it doesn't matter. It's still a life that was taken that could have
Right.
been prevented from, if we had resources. And if somebody just says, oh, bring in the extra help for RTs, or bring in the extra help for the nurses, just let whoever wants to come in help during that particular time. But
Right.
they didn't. And they were blaming me. I actually went to the board. They sent me to the Board of Ethics.
Mm.
They reviewed my chart, and they were like, oh, this might be, and I kept asking, do I need legal counsel? Do I need legal counsel? No, no, no. We're just, I said, but the way you guys are being so cryptic,
Sure.
and then I'm
Makes you
like,
feel
why
like
aren't we
you're in the
questioning?
wrong.
Right. Every day I cried for a whole week,
Mm.
and I was per diem at this time. So when I came back, the doctor and me both finally were able to talk to each other. And we just gave each other a hug, and we cried and
Oh my
cried
God.
because she was like, did you get the call too? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, I told them not to talk to you.
Mm.
He goes, that was my decision. All those decisions, he says, those were me. I didn't let you go because we didn't have the
Patient
team
wasn't
to
stable.
go.
Yeah.
Right. But not that would take 5 of us to go out. We would need
Right.
2 doctors, 3 nurses, 2 techs just to go to CT.
Right.
Like, it's not like, oh, let me just go with like me and the doctor. Like, it's not even though it wasn't. That's how unstable she should have been flown out.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, that's how unstable she was. We just didn't have the capacity for it. And that's kind of, and then I was so scared to even touch another patient. I
Sure.
was so scared. And the first patient I walked out was a code again. And I'm like, oh.
Of course.
And I told my charge nurse, I said, I just can't take this. I physically can't do it. Give me something else.
Yeah.
And they were just like, no, that's yours.
Yeah.
Luckily, a nurse who was there the week that happened, she was in the room with me. She goes, don't worry, I got you.
Yeah.
I'll double check your charting. But I was literally shaking.
Sure.
I've
Sure.
never I've done Hurricane Katrina. I've seen so many parties, done other mission stuff, right? I've seen so many deaths. And that alone was just took me to the core, because it just when you get questioned like that, it is ridiculed. Like, it
Yeah.
is so hard. And that shaking moment, honestly, like, it was Labor Day weekend, or it was the week before Labor Day weekend, because I remember that. I just put my resignation in. I just said, you know what, I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm done. But the trigger is that management didn't even call me, didn't even message me, didn't even let me know that they got my resignation letter.
Oh my goodness.
I had to resend it twice. And then I just was like, it was on Labor Day, on a holiday. And I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm out. I'm out. If you can't even have the right to even acknowledge that, someone that's been there for at least at that point 15 years,
Yeah.
right? And you can't just be like, hey, let me give you time off. How do we work? Like, being a nurse coach, right? Coming in, how are you feeling? Like, can we get you help? Like, and I'm telling you, I've had some shit happen to me at bedside, and
Mm-hmm.
every other manager, every other places I've done, they're like, let's just get you help. Let's just take time off the floor, regroup, you'll be fine, or restart you back slow again,
Yeah.
right? And because it's traumatic, super traumatic.
Absolutely. That's what I was
And
going to touch on, is that like this is what was 2 years ago at this point, and I can feel that emotion and
oh, it's
the PTSD and the moral injury and the all of those like keywords that we hear about, like this incident and your experience in
yeah,
resigning, like I can just feel all of that still so
it
raw,
was
and
it
you're
was horrible.
yeah, and that's the awful thing, is this is your experience, and this happens to thousands of other
Thousands.
nurses. And I think this is an example of why we're seeing such an exodus. And it's like, you can't, I don't even know you can blame it on a specific manager
No,
or a specific hospital or specific, it's just the unfortunate reality right now of our profession, is that these little incidents start mounting up on each other, one person, and then they affect another person, and then they leave, and then suddenly the department's gone, and now the patients aren't able to be served effectively because we don't have the resources and support needed, and it's just devastating.
it's a ripple effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you walk into work, you need to be able to trust your coworkers. Yeah,
Yeah,
at least have to respect them, let's
of
say, not
course.
necessarily trust them, at least respect them. I think COVID really took away that respect.
Mm.
It was more for each nurse out for themselves. You get stuck in a room, you're kind of doing the
Yeah,
dance of like, is someone gonna want to hear me? Like, hello,
yeah,
and because you can't walk out because you don't want to degown to get gown back up,
right.
and the lack of support of even anyone walking around going, hey, I noticed you've been in there for 30 minutes, are you good?
Yeah,
um because everyone was so burnt out that they're just like, oh,
right.
whatever, they'll figure it out, or comes
Yeah.
in. And the lack of respect really went away, and the
Mm.
clickiness is, I don't know what it is with nurses and being so damn clicky.
Yeah,
I don't know, but it's like they just never really get out of that high school mentality.
yeah,
And I think, talking about it, and I'll be very open about it, like, that culture part on top of COVID is what is really going to make the healthcare crumble.
Yeah. Well,
Because
we're seeing that right now.
right. Because it's the egotistic thing of like, I know this and I know this. And it's like,
It's
okay,
tough.
it's hard, right? Because a lot of nurses like letters behind their names.
Sure.
We do. There's nothing wrong with that. But also, just because you have letters behind your name doesn't necessarily mean you earn the respect. And not even
Yeah.
necessarily earn the respect, but it's just more of just like, hey, Jen, how are you doing today?
Right.
Going back to that empathy, going back to that compassion of like, hey, I noticed, hey, it's like, you're at the charge nurse desk or sitting at the desk and everyone's like, hey, where's Jen? Like, oh, let me go check on her. Make sure she's okay in her rooms because all the doors are shut with no windows. And call lights are going off, but no, who's there to answer the call lights if you're stuck in a room?
Yeah.
Then all the call lights are going off. So no one knows if it's a nurse or a patient. And then it becomes just background noise.
Wow.
And that was the whole reason why I left. I just, after that incident, when I felt like my voice wasn't heard and I felt like, I was like, wow, I really had to take 2 emails and still nothing. And then it was not like, hey, let's rectify this. Let's have a conversation. Nothing. And then finally that morning, I just told the charge nurse, I was like, today's my last day. They told me to go, no, you have to give 2 weeks. I said, I don't have to give anything. I quit and I walked off. And it was during lunch.
Wow.
And I said, goodbye. And I said, you want to fire me? I already quit.
Yeah.
I already put my resignation in. No one wants to look at it. That's not my fault.
Yeah.
But we were overstaffed that day anyways. And because it's a holiday, of course, everyone comes to work.
So then what did you do after you left? What did you take a break? Were you already a nurse coach at that point?
I was a nurse coach at this point. I was per diem and I was getting my business up and running. And if I remember correctly, I had like several one-on-one clients. And I think that's when the corporate side of things started really shifting. And once I really let go of bedside and me owning being a nurse coach, right? Because I think all the tools that I learned from the collective, all the tools that I learned from just what my own personal values are, that really gave me the backbone to leave. I had I was not as certain as I am today sitting here, but this was like now almost 2 years ago. Right. And it was scary. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't have a paycheck. Because I didn't have a paycheck. I was like, okay, I'm looking around. I don't have a paycheck, guys. My husband, when I quit, my husband's like, what'd you do? I was like, I quit.
Oh God.
And he goes, so do you have one more paycheck? I said, nope, nothing. And he goes, okay, now what? I was like, I don't know, but we're going to figure it out. We're going to figure it out because I can't go back.
Yeah.
That put me more determined to use my voice to really like hone in on that and reach out to people. And that's kind of how I got my first, corporate gig during those times. It's like, okay, how can I serve a better population? So people like me on the bottom of the train, station, like the bottom of the bottom, right? Doesn't feel that burnt out where management doesn't even care.
Yeah, because they're probably really burned out too.
Right. But that's kind of why, like, either the top-down model or for me, when I'm doing like an added benefit, like, okay, well, let's give those people a place to vent. Give those people a place to come to so they don't feel what I felt. I don't want anyone to have to go through what I felt. Yeah. And that's kind of how the whole corporate side came in. And I started talking to different CEOs, different HR directors, and all of them was just like, that's beautiful. Like, let them have a place where people fully understand the medical side of things, the COVID side of things, right? The postpartum side of things. the parent with the special needs, like that alone, that combination is just, you can't find that anywhere else. And that's when I kept getting yeses. And then I was like, well, thank God I left bedside.
Yeah.
Because it was
So
just
you
a path,
mentioned,
right? It was, but
yeah, yeah. And so you mentioned Rohan is one of your kiddos and he has special
yeah,
needs. And so part of your business really focuses on helping parents of with special needs kiddos, right?
yes, that is a lot. Two of my large corporation deals is related to helping the parents or helping the staff with parents with special
Mm,
needs.
beautiful.
And it's it gives HR or a company an understanding of the real life with special kids.
Hmm.
Because when a parent of a special child, and a special child doesn't necessarily be autistic, ADHD, I'm talking
Hmm.
cancer, diabetics, Crohn's, anything,
Yeah, good
right?
point.
Trisomial, anything genetic, anything. Those are
Hmm.
all considered special needs because they need something, an added attention, correct?
Hmm.
So it's, how do you balance that? And it's not even a balance, it's a harmony, right? Because we have good days and we're great. And then we
Sure.
have really bad days and we're really bad. But it's teaching the company the culture of sometimes just give them a break. Sometimes if it's like 8:30 and they're just like, they're literally walked in stumbling, and you can totally tell their demeanor's off, something's not right.
Sure.
Just asking them, how's your morning? Or how's it going today? And if they're like, oh my God, I haven't slept in 3 days or 2 days, take that with face value.
Sure.
Because our lack of sleep is way different than lack of sleep,
Yeah.
because it's because I don't think people realize the difference between a meltdown and a tantrum,
Mm,
right? Kids with special needs have meltdowns because they don't know how to sensory process things.
okay.
So it takes them anywhere from 5 minutes to 5 hours to calm down. And it's all
Wow.
processing. It's a processing. It's like they're figuring it out. They're crying, they're screaming, they're biting, they're shouting, they're kicking,
Mm,
they're throwing things, right? Because you're able to rational with them, but because they're already so overstimulated or
sure.
understimulated, it's either or of the spectrum, right? You got to figure out what works for your child. But the only way you're going to do that is by sitting in on those 5 hour days when you're just like, and then you're mentally exhausted.
Of course.
Versus a tantrum, those kids are generally redirectable. It's something because it's because they didn't get something, which is same thing on this side, but they're a little redirectable. You're able to sit down and they're gonna have their tantrum for a couple of minutes, but then, or 10, 15, 20 minutes. But after a while, their bodies are going to be like, wait, I'm not getting any attention now. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay. Like, and then it's like, are you done? Yes. Okay. Are you ready to talk about it? Yeah, I am now. And then you're able to work through it a little bit easier. I'm not saying it's like bulletproof,
Yeah.
but on the meltdown side, it's just, you don't know what triggers it. You don't
Mm,
know when it's going to occur. Is it because the sun came out too early? We don't know. Some days you just don't know.
yeah.
Or it's their diaper, or they're wet, or their stomach hurts. A lot of the times it's
Hmm.
usually through gut issue, but
Mm,
a lot of the times it's just they can't tell you, but they're already so focused on what's
sure.
happening that they're like 10 steps behind you. So you have to go back 10 steps of like, okay, is it this? No. Is it this? No. And it's like basics. It's like, is your toenail embedded? Like, we don't know.
Wow. Yeah.
And so, and those meltdowns can last, like Rohan's meltdowns lasted anywhere from 2 to 3 hours at
Wow.
times until he finally just exhausted himself.
Yeah.
And then he would wake up and go again. And we would not know what it was for
Sure.
years. And so, yeah, so now it's just that level of people understanding that, because it's like, especially for me, when I went from mom, because I had 3 kids under 3, so I had to go Rohan, Rhea, Rian, and comes in. And Ron has a meltdown, then it trickles down,
Sure.
get them going. And then by the time I get my help to come and then I'm going to work, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I've been up since maybe 3, 4, maybe 2, like maybe even 2 in the morning. Like I haven't slept yet. And now I have to mentally go in and be the proper nurse and having that mental stimulation of being a nurse and going into nurse mode, what we
Mm-hmm.
would call, right? We go to nurse mode.
Sure.
And I don't even have time to process sometimes what happens at work
Right.
or what happens at home or to come in. And then they blend together. So my days off are not days off.
Yeah. Wow, that's exhausting. And it's a perfect example of you don't know what other people are going through. And so and work, when you get to work, your life doesn't magically just stop. You still are
No,
dealing with the after effects of, being up since 2 a.m. and then having to come and work, and then jump right back into home life. I mean, that's a lot. And
a
it's
lot.
it's beautiful
And then
that
when you
you can
call in
offer others
sick,
that support.
yeah. And then at bedside, if you called in sick once or twice, now you get called to the office. You come in.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I got called to HR. I don't know how
Yeah.
many times I've gotten called to HR. At one point, I just told HR, just fire me. Like, I don't
Wow.
know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Because obviously you have to prioritize your kids, and even
right,
having help and support, like there's still moments when you have to be there.
right. And then you get labeled as the nurse of being called in sick. And it's like, you hear it on the
Mm,
phone. It's like, oh, I got to call in sick. And instead of people going, oh, not that they can relate or they come up, but
sure.
it's just that, oh, there she's calling in sick again. Or is that, why do you care? You're going to call in sick anyways. It's kind of like those comments. And those comments are
Yeah.
just, they're like little daggers, and you're just like,
Sure.
as a mom, I'm already feeling guilty about calling in sick because it's like, I'm not choosing that to go to the beach or doing something fun.
Right.
I'm doing it because like I'm home and I'd rather be at work.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather be away.
Yeah.
And I can't for whatever reason. And then you get that. And so it's just like, that's another reason why I just left. I was just like, I need to
Yeah.
find something that's passionate, that I have my own schedule, that not necessarily my own schedule, I lied, but controlled a little bit more in
Yes.
the
You have a
sense
little
of
bit more
like,
freedom over that.
correct, right, where I drop off my kids. I block off time. If
Yeah.
from after 4 o'clock, I'm very strict now. I'm like, nope, I'm done unless with like a specific thing. But it's just like I'm so rigid that my business revolves around my children, not
Yeah.
like not my business or my family revolves around my work.
Yeah. You prioritize your family first and fit your business
Yep.
in. Yeah,
Yep.
that's pretty amazing. And I think as I've delved into the nurse coaching world, that's one of the beautiful aspects of it is that you can set it up to how you want to set it up, right? So it, of
Yeah.
course, takes work to get there. But I think as nursing as a profession, there are so many options. And so we're seeing a lot of nurses not just leave the bedside, but leave the profession entirely. And that's so awful. But I also want to share that message is that you can do something else. Nurse coaching is a great opportunity. Like that's just one thing, but perhaps there's another type of nursing that you want to create a role for. Like you could literally do
Right.
anything you want in nursing, and you've shown such a great avenue. And it was a little traumatic, unfortunately, to get you to this space, but you've been incredibly successful already in the nurse coaching world and in your various businesses. We haven't even touched on the corporate nurse coach academy, which I'm in, and there's so much. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And that's just the one of the things. One thing, if anyone is listening, is if you create an experience to the world, any type of experience, it doesn't necessarily have to be business, like anything. If you create an experience for people to fully connect with you,
Mm,
money will follow.
mm,
It's we always say this in the academy. It's about your purpose. It's about your why, but it's also about your passion behind what it is that you're trying to do. So for me, it's giving people a voice. That's why I love your podcast. When you
mm.
said this, I was like, yes,
Thank you.
because it's giving people the voice.
Yeah.
And everyone has a uniqueness to them.
Mhm.
They just have to take it out. And it takes time to find it. But when you find that and you know how to express that, oh, it's so powerful.
Yeah,
So powerful. And that's why I'm so blessed to be on your podcast today.
thank you.
And as a coach, I'm so proud of you personally with seeing you go from day one to now and how much you have overcame, like, and how now you have a very successful podcast. You're doing different workshops. Like, it's in this, I didn't do any of this. This was all created by you. And I'm so proud of you to doing that. And I just want to acknowledge everybody on while listening is that this takes time and this
Sure.
takes energy.
It does. It does. Thank you for that. I gratefully receive that. It's something I'm working on, soaking it in. But it definitely, I think having mentors in the space to help tease out those ideas and help you process and also giving reminding our to give each other grace is that it does take time to I mean I'm a novice in this area still as a nurse coach and I am building a business and it's different skills than
Right.
practical nursing, right? And so it's been great to just have you and Amanda and so many other mentors in this space. I'm pretty darn grateful for that, so thank you as well.
I told you the honor's always ours.
Awesome. Well, I think this is the perfect spot to wrap up. So I just before
Yep.
we close, is there anything else you want to add that we didn't cover?
Just be you. If
Ah,
you have a
love it.
voice, if you have a voice and you need to speak up, speak up. Don't worry about what other people are going to say or think or do.
So true.
Share your story because your story, it can save someone's life.
Beautiful.
That's the best thing.
Thank you for that. That's awesome. Well, Bina, it's been a pleasure. Thank you again so much for being on the podcast, and we'll chat soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.